Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. You ever notice how the people who manipulate you the most are the ones who know exactly how to make you feel guilty, how they can cry on command, play the victim perfectly, turn every situation where you're protecting your interests into one where you're the villain, and you fold every single time. You compromise, you accommodate, you sacrifice what you want because you can't handle the emotional weight they're putting on you. You think you're just being a good person. You think empathy and consideration are virtues. But here's what's actually happening. Your empathy is a weapon they're using against you. Every time you change your decision because someone got emotional, every time you give in because you feel guilty, every time you can't be mean, even when being mean serves you, you're advertising that emotional manipulation works on you. And the people who figured this out, they're running your life. They see you wavering, and they pile on the pressure. They see you feeling guilty, and they amplify it. They see you care about their feelings, and they weaponize that care to extract what they want, while you sacrifice what you need. If you're starting to see how your empathy has been weaponized against you, and you're ready to build the defensive architecture that makes you immune, subscribe now. And here's the part that should terrify you. In a room full of manipulators, the most empathetic person is the easiest target. Your emotional responsiveness isn't making you good, it's making you controllable. They can read you, every emotion, every hesitation, every moment you're conflicted, and they use it. While you're agonizing over whether you're being too harsh, they've already made the ruthless call and moved on. While you're worrying about their feelings, they're calculating how to exploit yours. Machiavelli understood something that destroys good people. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty, it's immunity to emotional blackmail. The most powerful position in any conflict, any negotiation, any power dynamic is to be the person who can go completely emotionless while everyone else is reacting, to freeze, to become unreadable, to make decisions based purely on strategy while they're making decisions based on feelings. And when you master this, when you build a mind so ruthless, so compartmentalized, that their emotional tactics bounce off you, something happens. They freeze, because they've just realized you won't be moved by tactics that work on everyone else. And that realization changes everything. Stay till the end, because I'm about to show you how to build that ruthless mind, not by becoming a sociopath, but by constructing the mental architecture that lets you override empathy when strategy demands it, and how to deploy the freeze technique that makes manipulators hesitate before they even try to control you. Let me show you exactly what's been happening to you. You're in a conversation, could be personal, could be professional. Someone wants something from you, could be your time, your resources, your agreement to something that doesn't serve you. And instead of asking directly, they manipulate. They tell you a story designed to make you feel responsible. They express disappointment in a way that implies you'd be letting them down. They cry. They get angry. They make you feel like saying no would make you a bad person. And what do? You monitor your own response. You feel the guilt rising. You feel the discomfort of potentially disappointing them. You feel the social pressure of being seen as cold or uncaring. And those feelings override your logic. You know saying yes doesn't serve you. You know their request is unreasonable. You know you're being manipulated. But you can't access that knowledge through the wall of emotion they've triggered in you. So you fold, you say yes, you accommodate, you sacrifice your interests to relieve the emotional discomfort they've manufactured, and they walk away having gotten what they wanted. And you walk away feeling resentful, frustrated, used, but also guilty, because even though you know you were manipulated, you still feel like saying no would have made you a bad person. This is the trap. This is the cage they've built for you using your own empathy as the bars. Now watch what happens with someone who's built a ruthless mind. Same scenario, same manipulation attempt. But when the emotional tactics start, when the guilt trips begin, when the tears come, when the disappointment is expressed, something different happens. Nothing. They go still. Their face becomes completely neutral. Their body language remains unchanged. They don't react. They don't validate the emotion. They don't rush to reassure. They just wait. And in that stillness, in that complete absence of the expected emotional response, the manipulator realizes their tactics aren't working. They're not getting the guilt response. They're not triggering the accommodation reflex. They're hitting a wall. And that wall, that emotional fortress, it creates fear. Not in you, in them. Because they've just encountered something they didn't expect. Someone who can't be moved by emotional manipulation. Someone who's operating on pure strategy. Someone who's made the calculation that their interests outweigh the manipulator's feelings, and who can execute that calculation without visible internal conflict. That's the freeze. That's the ruthless mind in action. And it's not innate. It's built, deliberately, systematically. And you're about to learn how. First, you need to understand what ruthlessness actually is, because you've been taught that it's a character flaw, that it's the domain of villains and sociopaths, that caring about others' feelings is what separates good people from bad people. But that's not what ruthlessness is. Ruthlessness is the ability to prioritize your strategic interests over others' emotional comfort when necessary. It's not about never caring. It's about being able to temporarily suspend caring when caring would compromise your position. Think of it like a switch. Most people have their empathy hardwired to always on. They can't turn it off. They can't stop caring about how their decisions affect others, even when caring is strategically disadvantageous. The ruthless mind has developed the switch. Empathy can be on, and often is. But when strategy demands it, when someone is attempting emotional manipulation, when making the hard call requires setting aside emotional considerations, the switch flips. Empathy goes offline, and pure strategic calculation takes over. This isn't sociopathy. Sociopaths don't have the switch because they never had empathy to begin with. You do. You're not eliminating empathy. You're learning to compartmentalize it, to contain it, to prevent it from interfering with strategic decision-making when it matters. This is the distinction most people miss. They think ruthlessness means becoming cruel. It doesn't. It means becoming capable of making the cruel decision when the cruel decision is the right decision, and then living with it, without guilt, without agonizing, without looking back. Machiavelli wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." And what he meant for you is this: if you have to choose between being liked and being effective, choose effective every time, because being liked while being exploited is just slavery with good PR. Being feared or respected or simply recognized as someone who won't be moved by emotional tactics, that's freedom. That's power. That's the ruthless mind. So let's build the framework. Let's show you exactly how to construct a mind that can override empathy, execute ruthless decisions, and project such cold calculation that others freeze before attempting to manipulate you. This isn't theory. This is tactical psychology. This is the operating system upgrade that separates the controlled from the controllers. Layer 1. Emotional compartmentalization. This is the foundation. You need to develop the ability to separate emotion from decision-making. Right now, they're fused. You feel something, and it immediately influences your thinking. Someone triggers guilt, and your decision-making is compromised. Someone expresses disappointment, and you adjust your position. The feeling and the decision are one system. You need to make them two systems. Here's how you train this. Start small. Start with decisions that don't matter. Someone asks you for something minor. Can you do them a favor? Can you change plans? Can you accommodate them in some small way? And your first impulse is to say yes, because saying no feels uncomfortable. Don't obey the impulse. Pause. Notice the discomfort. Acknowledge it. I feel uncomfortable saying no. I feel guilty. I feel like I should accommodate. And then, with full awareness of that feeling, say no anyway. You're not eliminating the feeling, you're acting despite it. You're creating a gap between the emotional response and the behavioral output. And in that gap, you're building the compartmentalization muscle. The more you do this, the more you feel the guilt and act against it, feel the empathy and override it, feel the discomfort and proceed anyway. The stronger that muscle becomes, until eventually the gap becomes automatic. The feeling happens, you acknowledge it, and it no longer controls the decision. That's compartmentalization. That's the first layer. Layer 2, strategic coldness. This is where you learn to go emotionally flat on command, to freeze, to become completely unreadable when someone is attempting emotional manipulation. Right now, you're transparent. They can see everything. They can see when you're feeling guilty, when you're wavering, when you're about to fold. And that transparency gives them perfect information about which tactics to deploy and when to push harder. Strategic coldness removes that information. You train yourself to adopt a completely neutral expression when emotional tactics are deployed against you. No visible reaction, no emotional validation, no reassurance, just stillness. And you pair that with silence. You don't rush to fill the uncomfortable quiet. You don't explain yourself. You don't justify your decision. You just deliver it, calmly, flatly, with zero emotional inflection, and then stop talking. Here's what this looks like in practice. Someone tries to guilt you into something. They tell you how disappointed they are, how much they needed this from you, how you're letting them down, and you look at them with complete neutrality and say, "I understand you're disappointed. My decision stands." Then silence. No apology, no explanation, no, "I'm sorry, but," just the statement and silence. And you maintain eye contact. You don't look away. You don't fidget. You become a wall. And in that moment, they're experiencing something they didn't expect, someone who's completely unmoved by their emotional display. And that creates the freeze. They hesitate. They recalculate. They realize this isn't going to work. And that realization changes the entire dynamic. Layer 3. Decision pre-commitment. This is how you prevent yourself from being swayed in the moment. Right now, you make decisions in real time while emotional pressure is being applied. And that's when you're weakest. That's when the guilt and empathy override your logic. So you stop making decisions under pressure. You pre-commit. Before any interaction where manipulation is likely, you decide what you're going to do, not what you'll try to do, not what you'd prefer to do, what you're actually going to do, regardless of how they respond. And you make that decision when you're not under emotional pressure, when you're calm, when you can think strategically. And then, when the interaction happens, when the emotional tactics come out, you're not deciding, you're executing. You've already decided. The tears don't matter. The guilt doesn't matter. The disappointment doesn't matter, because the decision was made before any of that happened. This is Machiavellian strategic planning. He understood that decisions made under emotional pressure are almost always poor decisions. So the solution is simple. Don't make decisions under pressure. Make them beforehand. Then execute them ruthlessly, regardless of the emotional theater that unfolds. Layer 4. Guilt immunity. This is the advanced layer. This is where you systematically dismantle the guilt response that makes you manipulatable. Right now, you feel guilty when you prioritize your interests over others' feelings. You've been trained to feel that guilt. Society installed it. Your family reinforced it. And now it's a weapon anyone can use against you. So you need to reprogram it. Here's the reframe. Guilt is appropriate for actual wrongdoing, not for strategic self-interest. If you harm someone without justification, guilt is appropriate. If you betray someone who trusted you, guilt is appropriate. But if you make a decision that serves you and disappoints them, no guilt. That's not wrongdoing, that's just strategy. They wanted you to prioritize their interests. You prioritized yours. That's not evil, that's just the game. You train this reframe consciously. Every time guilt activates because you made a strategic decision, you catch it, you examine it. Am I feeling guilty because I did something actually wrong, or because I failed to sacrifice myself for someone else? And in almost every case, it's the latter. And you remind yourself, feeling guilty for not sacrificing yourself is just the control mechanism working. It's the programming designed to keep you manageable. And you're dismantling that programming, deliberately, one guilt-free strategic decision at a time. Layer 5. The ruthless identity. This is the final layer. This is where you integrate ruthlessness into your self-concept. Right now, you see yourself as a good person, and good people don't do ruthless things. So every time you act ruthlessly, there's internal conflict, there's cognitive dissonance. You're behaving in a way that contradicts your identity, and that dissonance makes the behavior unsustainable. So you need to update the identity. You need to see yourself as someone who can be ruthless when strategy demands it. Not as a sociopath, not as a villain, but as someone who's effective, someone who wins, someone who doesn't allow themselves to be exploited through emotional manipulation. You frame ruthlessness not as a character flaw, but as a capability, a tool, something you deploy when necessary, not something that defines you completely. And you do this through evidence accumulation. Every time you make a ruthless decision and the outcome is positive, you protected your interests, you weren't exploited, you achieved your goal, you note it, you add it to the evidence pile. I was ruthless, it worked, I'm better off. And over time, the evidence shifts your identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who can do hard things, who can make uncomfortable calls, who can prioritize strategy over emotion. And that identity makes the behavior easier, makes it sustainable, makes it your new default. These 5 layers, compartmentalization, strategic coldness, pre-commitment, guilt immunity, ruthless identity, they're the architecture, they're the framework for building a mind that can operate ruthlessly when necessary. And when you have all 5 layers functioning, you're no longer vulnerable to emotional manipulation, you're no longer the easy target, you're no longer the person people can control through guilt and tears. You're the person they hesitate to engage with, because they can sense, even if they can't articulate it, that you're operating at a level they can't access, that you've built defenses they can't penetrate, that you're ruthless, and ruthlessness is dangerous. If this framework is clicking, if you're seeing how to construct each layer, hit that like button. It tells me you're absorbing this, and it pushes this to others who are still letting empathy be used as a weapon against them. Now let me show you what happens when you actually deploy this, when you've built the ruthless mind and someone attempts to manipulate you emotionally. Because the freeze effect, the thing that happens to them when they realize their tactics don't work, it's powerful. And you need to understand why it works, so you can deploy it strategically. You're in a negotiation, could be salary, could be a business deal, could be a personal boundary, someone's pushing against, and they're using emotional tactics, they're expressing disappointment, they're telling you how much they've done for you. They're implying you'd be unreasonable, ungrateful, selfish for holding your position, all the standard manipulation plays, and you're watching it happen with complete detachment. And then you respond, and your response is emotionally flat. No apology, no guilt, no accommodation, just your position, stated clearly, calmly, with zero emotional inflection. This is what I'm doing. And then you stop talking. You maintain eye contact. You don't break the silence. You just wait. And in that silence, something shifts. They're experiencing cognitive dissonance because their emotional tactics should have worked. They've worked on everyone else. They've worked on you in the past. But right now, in this moment, they're not working. And they can see that. They can see you're completely unmoved. They can see there's no guilt response. They can see you've made a calculation and their feelings don't factor into it. And that realization, that sudden awareness that they're dealing with someone who won't be manipulated emotionally, it freezes them. The freeze happens because they've lost their primary weapon. They don't know how to proceed. They're used to people who feel guilty, who compromise, who prioritize harmony over strategy. And you're not that. You're something else, something colder, something more dangerous. And they need time to recalibrate, to figure out a different approach. But while they're recalibrating, while they're frozen, you've already won, because you maintained frame, you held position, you demonstrated that emotional tactics don't move you, and that demonstration changes every future interaction. Let me show you another scenario. Personal relationship. Someone close to you wants something that doesn't serve you, and when you say no, they escalate. They cry, they tell you how hurt they are, they express disappointment that you don't care about them enough to accommodate this, all designed to trigger your guilt and empathy, all designed to make you fold. And you don't fold. You sit there, completely still, emotionally neutral, and you say, "I understand you're upset. My answer is no," and then silence. You don't explain, you don't justify, you don't apologize, you just deliver the no, and let them sit with it. And they're crying, and you're not comforting, you're not reassuring, you're just there, unmoved. And in that moment, they're experiencing something shocking. Their emotional display isn't working. And here's what happens next. Usually when people cry and you comfort them, they learn that crying gets them what they want. Crying manipulates you. But when they cry and you don't respond, when you remain completely emotionally detached, they learn the opposite. They learn that emotional displays don't work on you, that you're not going to be controlled through tears or guilt. And that learning changes the entire relationship dynamic. They stop trying emotional manipulation because they've learned it's ineffective. And you've established a new baseline, strategic interaction, not emotional manipulation. This is the freeze in action. This is the ruthless mind deployed. And it works. Not because you're cruel, not because you don't care, but because you've built the capability to compartmentalize caring when caring would compromise your strategic position. You can care about someone and still tell them no. You can empathize with their disappointment and still prioritize your interests. You can understand their emotions and still remain unmoved by their manipulation tactics. These aren't contradictions, they're compartmentalization. Now let's address what you're probably thinking. But doesn't this make me a bad person? Doesn't this make me like the manipulators? And the answer is no, because there's a critical difference. You're not using ruthlessness to exploit others. You're using it to defend yourself from exploitation. The manipulators are offensive players. They're using emotional tactics to extract resources, compliance or advantage from you that you wouldn't give voluntarily. You're the defensive player. You're building the fortress that makes their attacks ineffective. This is the Machiavellian distinction. He never advocated for unnecessary cruelty. He advocated for effectiveness, and sometimes effectiveness requires ruthlessness. Sometimes the strategic decision is the harsh decision. Sometimes protecting your interests means disregarding others' feelings. And if you can't do that, if you're always prioritizing their emotional comfort over your strategic position, you'll always be exploited. You'll always be the target. You'll always be the easy mark. Machiavelli wrote, "Before all else, be armed." And for you, the weapon is a ruthless mind. A mind that can override empathy when strategy demands it. A mind that can make hard decisions without internal conflict. A mind that can't be manipulated through guilt, tears, or emotional pressure. That's the armor. That's the fortress. And without it, you're defenseless. Now let me show you the daily practice, the specific exercises that build and maintain a ruthless mind, because this isn't a one-time transformation. This is a capability that requires maintenance, requires constant reinforcement, requires practice. Exercise 1. Strategic number. Every day, say no to something that triggers your guilt or empathy. Something where saying yes would be easier, would make someone happy, would avoid conflict, and say no anyway. Not because you're being difficult, because you're training the compartmentalization muscle. You're building the capability to prioritize strategy over comfort. Start small, build up, but do it daily, because the muscle atrophies without use. Exercise 2. Emotional freeze practice. Put yourself in situations where emotional pressure will be applied. Could be negotiations, could be difficult conversations, could be interactions with people who typically manipulate you. And practice going completely emotionally flat when the pressure comes. Practice the neutral expression. Practice the silence. Practice maintaining frame despite their emotional tactics. You're not trying to win these interactions necessarily. You're trying to build the freeze capability, to make it automatic. Exercise 3. Guilt audit. At the end of each day, review moments where you felt guilty, and for each one, ask, was this guilt about actual wrongdoing, or was this guilt about failing to sacrifice myself for someone else? And if it's the latter, consciously dismiss it. Remind yourself that guilt for strategic self-interest is just the control mechanism, and you're dismantling that mechanism, one guilty feeling at a time. Exercise 4. Ruthless decision journaling. Every time you make a decision that required ruthlessness, that required overriding empathy or disregarding someone's emotional response, write it down. Note what the decision was, note what you felt, note what happened, and note whether the outcome validated the ruthlessness. Over time, this creates the evidence pile that shifts your identity. That makes ruthlessness feel less like a betrayal of who you are, and more like an effective tool you deploy when necessary. Exercise 5. Study ruthless operators. Watch people who've built this capability. Watch how they handle emotional manipulation. Watch how they maintain frame. Watch how they make hard decisions without visible internal conflict. You're not trying to become them. You're studying the pattern, the body language, the vocal tone, the decision speed, the emotional flatness, and you're integrating what works into your own operating system. These 5 exercises, strategic know, freeze practice, guilt audit, decision journaling, pattern study, they're the maintenance protocol. They're how you keep the ruthless mind sharp, how you prevent backsliding into old empathy-driven decision-making, how you ensure that when manipulation happens, the freeze is automatic, not something you have to consciously deploy. And here's what happens over time. The people in your life start treating you differently, not worse, differently. They stop attempting emotional manipulation because they've learned it doesn't work. They stop trying to guilt you because you don't respond to guilt. They stop expecting you to sacrifice your interests for theirs because you've demonstrated you won't. And what replaces the manipulation? Either genuine interaction based on mutual interest, or they leave, and either outcome serves you. Because the people who stay, the people who can interact with you without emotional manipulation, those are the relationships worth having. Those are people who respect your boundaries, who operate strategically themselves, who don't need you to be weak to feel comfortable. And the people who leave, they were only there because they could exploit you, and their departure is clarification, not loss. This is the transformation, from empathetic target to ruthless operator, from easy mark to frozen fortress, from someone who can be controlled through guilt to someone who can't be controlled at all. And it's not about becoming heartless, it's about becoming strategic. It's about having the capability to override heart when strategy demands it. It's about building a mind that can make the hard call without internal drama. Machiavelli understood that the powerful aren't the most loved, they're the most effective. And effectiveness sometimes requires ruthlessness, sometimes requires making decisions that hurt others, sometimes requires prioritizing your interests over their feelings. And if you can't do that, if you're always going to prioritize being liked over being effective, you'll never be powerful. You'll always be managed. You'll always be the person others use to achieve their goals while you sacrifice yours. But if you build the ruthless mind, if you develop the freeze capability, if you become someone who can override empathy strategically, everything changes. You stop being the target. You stop being the easy mark. You stop being the person who can be controlled through tears and guilt. You become dangerous, not because you're cruel, because you're effective, because you've built defenses that emotional manipulation can't penetrate, because you've mastered the art of strategic ruthlessness. If you're ready to stop being controlled through empathy and start building a mind that freezes manipulators, subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is for people who understand that ruthlessness isn't evil, it's self-defense. Drop a comment telling me which layer you're building first. Share this with someone who's still letting guilt dictate their decisions, because the world is divided into two groups: people who are controlled through their emotions and people who control their emotions strategically. And you just joined the second group. You can't go back now. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you know. Your empathy has been weaponized against you your entire life. Every time someone made you feel guilty for prioritizing your interests, every time someone used tears to manipulate you into compliance, every time someone made you the villain for saying no, that was emotional warfare. And you were unarmed. You were defenseless. You were the easy target. But not anymore. Now you have the framework. Now you know how to build the ruthless mind. Now you understand that compartmentalization isn't cruelty, it's capability. That strategic coldness isn't heartlessness, it's defense. That the freeze isn't intimidation, it's immunity to manipulation made visible. And most importantly, you understand that you don't have to feel guilty about protecting yourself from emotional exploitation. That's not wrong. That's just strategy. So build the mind, layer by layer: compartmentalization, strategic coldness, pre-commitment, guilt immunity, ruthless identity. Build it deliberately, practice it daily, deploy it strategically, and watch what happens. Watch how people stop trying to manipulate you. Watch how emotional tactics bounce off you. Watch how you can make hard decisions without internal conflict. Watch how you freeze others, not through intimidation, but through demonstrating that you operate at a level they can't access, that you've built defenses they can't penetrate, that you're ruthless. And ruthlessness, real ruthlessness, strategic ruthlessness, Machiavellian ruthlessness, that's not evil. That's just what winning looks like, when emotional manipulation is the weapon everyone else is using. You've built the armor, now wear it, unapologetically, ruthlessly, effectively, because you're done being the target, you're done being controlled, you're done sacrificing your interests for others' feelings. You're the frozen fortress now, and manipulators break themselves against you.